Well, thought I'd take a few minutes here, and we're at Nia Bay, and might as well just kind of sit back and have a Dr. Pepper for a minute. And the probably worth talking a little bit about, how to call the cavalry if something goes wrong. So I have a number of satellite devices on the boat. I do have Garmin InReach, which is a satellite tracking beacon, and it sends a signal about every 10 minutes. So family and friends can log in remotely and see where you are, which makes it kind of fun. But also in the event of an emergency, there's a very easily last known position by using the device. You can also send text messages. You can type them out. You can have prearranged text messages on it as well. It has an SOS button, so you can actually call the Coast Guard if need be with the Garmin InReach. The battery lasts about 72, maybe 100 hours. I've tested that. So that's live for me right now on the InReach. I also have one of the regular EPIRBs, which is a one-way communicating device, satellite rescue beacon. EPIRB stands for Emergency Position Indicating Rescue Beacon. It only communicates one way. You pull the lever, and you hope for the best. You hope that the message gets through to the Coast Guard, and then they come and find you. The nice thing about the InReach is that you can communicate with the rescuers, whether you're in the life raft, you're on the boat, or you're in the life raft. You can let them know, how you're doing, how you're faring, if you're injured or not, that kind of thing. And in fact, if you have it with you, and let's say the life raft is washed away and the boat sinks, with the InReach you can communicate, let them know that you're in the water, and that you'd still have a reasonable chance of them finding you. At least they'll know to look in the water, and they're not looking for a life raft anymore. You can let them know. You're able to send them that message. Again, if you are in the water and you don't have a survival suit, you only have about an hour, so probably a half hour while you're halfway conscious. So get your messages out fast and let them know the situation. I also have a satellite phone as well, so that I find that's handy. I've had occasions where I've been offshore and I've had engine trouble, and I had the mechanic on the other end of the phone walk me through the repair on the sat phone. And okay, in theory you could do it by text on the InReach device, but I do like the added security blanket of the satellite phone to actually have a conversation, especially if you're troubleshooting something tricky. And I had my mechanic walk me through a couple issues when I did my passage, or my series of trips from Victoria all the way down to Cabo San Lucas. That was a trip that I did, Victoria to Newport, Oregon, Newport to San Francisco, San Francisco to San Diego, San Diego to Cabo. And in particular, on the legs from San Francisco to San Diego and San Diego to Cabo, I had engine trouble and would not have been able to get the engine started if I didn't have the sat phone. So, just in summary, I have 3 ways to communicate via satellite: the InReach device, the satellite phone, and the EPIRB. I also have an AIS transmitter and receiver. AIS stands for Automated Information System. It's a VHF-based rescue system and communication system. So that means it's got a range of about 20 miles. It can go boat to boat, so if there's a boat within 20 miles and you press the emergency button on the AIS, it will eventually get to the Coast Guard, and it'll also transmit the boat's location. Once you're in the life raft, though, it'll only have last known position of the sailboat. The AIS transmitter sends out a signal, and so other boats that have an AIS receiver can see me, and I can see other boats that also have an AIS transmitter. On my old boat, I had an AIS receiver only, and I upgraded this system to have both a receiver and a transmitter. Is well worth the money, and they actually are cheap now, or a lot cheaper. So that's the other one of the other ways to call the cavalry. I also have a 5-watt VHF handheld radio that I keep in the ditch bag, so that if I do end up in the life raft and all of my other means of communication is either gone or destroyed or got wet and doesn't work, and I see a boat, I can call a boat on the handheld VHF radio. I believe that's got a range of maybe 5-6 miles or so. Then of course I have the garden variety horns. I have an air horn, I have flares, I have a signal mirror, strobes on my headlamp. I've got a headlamp in the ditch bag as well. And those are really essentially all the ways that I have to call the cavalry. The other important items is the EPIRB itself does have boat information. When you log in, it talks about the boat and myself. Same with InReach, good description of the boat and the life raft and color of the hull and things like that. Also logged into the InReach. I also do as another precaution. I have a good friend of mine, his name's Bill Betts, act as a command central on land for True North. So when I am offshore, I will check in with Bill every day, at least once a day, sometimes more, but at least once a day. And he is at his computer. He can give me weather reports. You can also get weather reports, by VHF radio. You can also get them by on the InReach. You can also get grid files by a satellite phone. I don't have that set up, but what I do have is Command Central with Bill Betts, and Bill will provide me with updated weather reports by going on to Passage Finder or something like that. And I give him a state of the nation, what's going on. He can see where I am, on the InReach and confirm that the devices are working, and the InReach is working, and by all means, the texts, the positioning, the whole works. So it's live, and with Bill, we've had a number of rehearsals while I've been coastal sailing in the San Juans, and just to practice, for Bill and myself to get comfortable with our systems, so that we know what's going on. He knows what's going on. He knows what to expect, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, sailing's supposed to be fun. Hopefully you're not supposed to be dealing with the thought of death or dying, but Unfortunately, sometimes when the shit hits the fan, you need to have these systems in place. And to the extent that we can, one of the things that Bill talks about is the InReach device takes the search out of search and rescue. It becomes rescue because they know where you are. Same with the EPIRB, same with the satellite phone. And people have survived 30, 60, 70 or more days in a life raft. Ideally, if you have the appropriate communication devices, you should be rescued within hours or even days, one way or another, by a ship nearby or another boater nearby or the Coast Guard or others. So these are devices that help us, keep us safe, minimize rescue time, but it also, at the end of the day, saves tax dollars of the search team. They can be spending their time, rescuing and finding somebody else. Anyway, I speak very highly of these things, but they are important. Again, sailing and offshore sailing is meant to be fun, but we should never forget that part of the reason that it's exhilarating is because it remains a risk sport. So for that reason, we should make sure that we take all the necessary precautions that we can to keep ourselves safe. That's all for now, and I'm going to sit back. Actually, this is not even a beer, it's a Dr. Pepper, but I'm going to have a Dr. Pepper, and then I may have a beer later. So just finally to summarize, the 3 satellite devices that I have, this orange one here, that's the InReach device. It is satellite. It's got a satellite tracking capability, so it can send a signal, every 10 minutes, and family and friends can log into it remotely online and see where you are, last known position. They can also send messages either on their phone or on their computer back to the device. Either emails or texts can come through. It is possible to send emails and texts on the device back, and there is also the SOS provision as well. So you press the SOS button and it sends a message to the Coast Guard and rescuers. The black one, of course, that's just a standard satellite phone. And for voice and text, there is an SOS button that can send a pre-programmed message or phone a pre-programmed number if you press the button on this particular model. And then there's the call it the older style EPIRB, emergency positioning indicator rescue beacon, which is only a one-way communication device. It does float, it's totally waterproof, shockproof, etc. But it only is one way, and you never really know if they've got the message when you set that off. So I have all 3. I own the InReach and I own the EPIRB. Unless you're traveling or using a sat phone like 5 months out of the year, I've been told the math is that it's cheaper just to rent it for the passages that you're doing. So unless you're going to be on the sat phone and using it, more than 5 months out of the year, because you also have to buy the phone and then you have to have a plan. When you rent a phone, it usually comes with free minutes and whatnot. So I rent the sat phone. But I own the InReach and the EPIRB. Maybe this is overkill. I guess if I was just going to pick one, I think I would pick the InReach over the other 2, because the InReach has got the tracking capability live. It's got messaging, email, and text back, and it's got the SOS provision. Of course, sat phone can also be hooked up to the computer and whatnot, and you can get, if you've got the software and it's hooked up to your computer, then you can get grid files and weather forecasts and things like that, which is another benefit, but that's beyond the scope of this discussion. I do have all three, like I said. Maybe it's overkill, or maybe it's old age, or maybe it's just that I'm afraid, which I am. I got a good, healthy dose of fear. But I wanted to show you those, and then the other ones, of course, the boat VHF radio, 25 watts, which is probably a range of maybe up to 20 miles, and the 5-watt handheld, which is maybe a range of, say 5 miles or so, plus flares, etc., etc. But thought I would just take a minute and show you the 3 satellite communication devices on my boat.